job is for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would you all remain standing, please, for we'd like to take a moment of silence for the passing of Teresa Pani, a longtime teacher at BOCES and president of this teachers union as well. Thank you, everyone. Okay. No public comment. We're going to move right on to budget development information. Do you need to, Susan, is that you? Budget development, do you have anything else to add?
Susan, you're muted.
We have the consent agenda.
I don't have that order. Did I miss something, Ken?
No, the presentation is before the consent agenda.
Yeah. I didn't think I'd missed anything.
Okay.
Sorry, I minimized myself so I could pull up the presentation.
Gotcha.
And we also have Jen Mitchell.
Yes, I'm just going to introduce my team. So we talked about our new business office team and all the reorging that we did with the retirements. So I am pleased to have my new team with me tonight for the first budget that we are developing together, the 2022-2023 school year, as scary as that sounds, because it just seems like time has just flown by. So I can't see them on my screen. I can only see a couple of you, but Vicki Ferguson is our new business administrator and Jennifer Mitchell is a school business assistant. So Vicki and Jen, if you would just say hi and introduce yourselves to the board, please.
Ferguson, I am excited. It's the first time I've gone through the BOCES budget process and it's very different from what you see in a school district. So it's been quite the experience so far. So it's been a busy couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Jen? Hello, Jennifer Mitchell. I've been through quite a lot of BOCES budgets, but with Keith in charge. So this BOCES budget is quite different. So a lot of work, but I am excited and look forward to it.
Thank you, Jen.
Okay, so with all of that said, this is BOCES budgeting part 1. We're going to do part 2 on February 1st. So tonight, our agenda is going to include the components of a BOCES budget. We are going to talk in a little bit of detail about the administrative budget. We are going to talk about transfer charges, and we're going to review the rental budget and the capital budget.
Susan, we don't see your slides changing.
Oh, why is that?
Yeah, we just have the BOCES budget.
Okay, hang on. Why would it not be doing that?
Did you hit?
There, now we see it.
Now you see it? Okay. Yes. Yep. All right. If it doesn't change when I hit my forward button again, I will figure something out. So we have 3 components of the BOCES budget. I think most of you are aware of this. So we have the administrative budget, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. And that's the only part of the BOCES budget that's voted on by our component districts. We have a capital budget and a rental budget. And then we have our program and services budget. So those are the things that we refer to as COSERs. And it's everything from special ed to CTE to management services and shared itinerant services. Did it just change for you?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. Okay, so the administrative budget, which is really your budget, is comprised of the Board of Education, the district superintendent's office, central administration, the business office, and OPEB, which, as most of you know, is other post-employment benefits, and that's our retirees' health insurance and our Medicare B reimbursements. For those of you who are either still on a BOCES or a school district component board of education, or were recently or had been on a board of education at one time, you'll know that your retirees' health insurance and all that is in one line item. So your actives and your retirees are in the same line item. For BOCES, Ed law requires that we keep our other post-employment benefits in the admin budget. And it's the largest item in our largest line item, excuse me, in our administrative budget.
So the staff,
go ahead.
Sorry. So the staffing, there's been, it's been a year of a lot of transitions with a lot of new positions like mine that changed for Keith, but then also people who are in new roles and in new positions like Jen. So what we have here is we have the different areas within the admin budget for all the different staffing. So there's the support that you get as the board, which is our claims auditor and the treasurer and the district clerk role. And then under the district superintendent is, of course, Dr. DeFort, and then Jean's role. And then the central admin going in a circle, your HR, your receptionist, that sort of thing. And then I think that what you see in this is that all of and then the business is the business office side. So the billing and the cross contracts and all the reporting requirements to the states and all of that. So that's under the business office piece. And the certified staff up there in the upper right corner, you see that would be Dr. DeFort, as well as Susan and myself. And then all of the other are considered non-certified positions, and those are there. But then the clerical pool is something that we use as a transfer. So that covers those positions with a little asterisk on it, you'll see there. So that's just how we cover all of the different staffing needs within the admin budget. Make sense?
So I work on most of the discretionary spending for the budget. 10 years of having been the purchasing agent allows me to know a lot of the things that we purchase year to year, as well as I work with the administrators to find out things that they will be needing in the upcoming years. So the discretionary spending, as you may know, is anything that does not fall under salary and benefits. So that are things like, equipment, contracts, supplies, and that type of spending. Under the Board of Ed, the largest and unpredictable expense is the legal services, which in years where we have multiple 3020A hearings, that can be a very large expense, as well as the liability insurance, which is forever increasing. So that's the largest part of the discretionary Board of Ed. In the business office, we have WinCap, which is a very large expense, which will be going up an 8% increase in 22-23. And that is for the new platform that WinCap is putting out and the transfer of the cost to the users. BOCES also is no longer exempt from the internal auditing requirement. So that's going to be an additional cost of about $10,000 to the business office as well. Also in both of those areas, the membership and conferences, that's just a very small amount. And obviously due to COVID, the conferences and PD has been much smaller than usual. In the district superintendent, again, just allocations for meetings, memberships, conferences, and in HR, we do have an HR software, which traditionally has an increase every year, as well as postage increase every year. So we just try to account for anything new, anything increasing, and anything that we can see coming up in the future.
Any questions for Vicki or Jen or I so far? All right, we're going to keep going. So I talked a little bit about retirees' health insurance and the Medicare B expenditures. As I mentioned, it is the largest line item in the administrative budget. We're projecting that that line item for the upcoming school year will be 1,551,627. We have projecting 161 retirees will be on our books in the upcoming school year. And that does include an increase we're anticipating 12 new retirees. So those 12 are included in the 161, but it is a pretty big year in terms of we will have double-digit retirees predicted at the end of this school year unless employees decide to rescind their intent to retire. As I stated earlier, SED or the state ed laws require that we include this expense in the administrative budget, and it represents about 46% of our administrative budget. So for those of you who have been around for a while, this number has been creeping up, and we did or have been projecting that it was going to get to the 50% marker, and we are getting closer and closer to that point. If we were a school district and we were looking at a comparison, or we wanted to make a comparison, then we would take that figure and we would take a look at what percent of our entire general fund budget that number is. And it's usually between 3 and 5. We're in the middle of preparing that general fund budget now because all the programs and COSER budgets, we literally just got our last ISRs from 2 districts that were kind of holdouts on us today. So the next 2 weeks, Jen, Vicki, and I will be very busy crunching numbers and calculating tuitions, but our number is pretty close. And a couple years ago, we did an analysis and we were very comparable with school districts if we were allowed to book that expense like they do. And we are projecting that we will have between 135 and 140 Medicare B reimbursement recipients. And that line item will be almost $270,000 in the upcoming school year. So we talked about transfer charges a little earlier. You heard Vicki reference administrative assistance. So we have transfer charges for areas that don't generate any revenues, but are departments that are needed for the operation of the organization. So operations and maintenance is obviously the biggest one of those. But then we also have technology support, which has been really crucial, especially in COVID, and public relations and communications, all the publications, the budget booklet, the services guide, all of the correspondence. And that also has increased. I mean, I know that Dr. DeFore sends tons of things out and uses our PR department to manage all of those COVID resource announcements. And then administrative assistants, campus principals, assistant principals, and teaching assistants. The reason we decided to pool that workforce is in the past, if we had some COSERs that had some long-term staff members, so say a clerical person who had been here like 25 years and was making a higher salary versus a COSER with a newer person, we had some fluctuation in rates, because obviously if you were the COSER that had the high person and then all of a sudden that person retired, your rate would go down. And so we tried to equalize that. And so in order to do that, we created these transfer COSERs. So we put all of the administrative assistants as well as all the administrators in one COSER, and then we charge it out to the programs on an FTE basis. So everybody's paying the same FTE, whether you have the most senior or the least senior person, based on the positions that you need in these pooled budgets to support your department. And then there's some other revenue generating COSERs. Like we all buy things from each other because we need services within our BOCES, just like school districts do. So I think instructional support services and health and safety are the 2 best examples of that. Maria provides a ton of professional development and a variety of other resources to our instructional programs. And so just like districts have to pay for those services, our special ed and CTE COSERs, programs, if they want to participate, they need to pay their fair share. And health and safety, we were talking about this at the facilities committee the other day, our annual visuals, AHIRA, other inspections, health and safety consults. And again, that department I think has also been a crucial asset to us during COVID and provides great assistance. And when they don't know an answer because the regs are changing quickly, they're great at getting that information. And basically all of these things are charged out on a utilization basis. So this is a very preliminary projection for our administrative budget going into 22-23. Our increase is over 6%, but the majority of that increase is in the retirees' health insurance and Medicare B reimbursement lines. So between now and February 1st, we will be refining this. But right now, we think will be just over $3.4 million for the 22-23 school year. And we'll divide all of that out and show you how each line item is increasing at the beginning of next month's budget development meeting, and talk to you about exactly where the retirees' health insurance and Medicare B reimbursement is if we have updated information. Right now, we are projecting a 4% increase on retirees' health insurance and a 9% increase for health insurance premiums as initial estimates. So I wanted to talk a little bit about our WADA. So our WADA is resident weighted average daily attendance. And I know many of you have heard me speak about our WADA before, but districts receive their RWADA number, their figure, it's weighted. So for a K-6 student, it's a 1.0. For a secondary student, 7 through 12, it's a 1.25. And I don't think half-day kindergarten is around anymore, but I know we don't have that in our area. So overall, our WADA is declining in the county and even at the statewide level, because our numbers were down so much in the county. I asked some of my colleagues at the state, is this a statewide trend? And they said, that's a great question. And when they researched it, they came back to me and they said, yes, they are seeing statewide the numbers go down. So when I first started back in the early 2000s, we were even higher than the 11,250 that you'll see in the top right-hand corner of this screen. But you can see, we were 11,250 in 2005, 2006. We were down to 9,459 in 2019-20. And for the 2022-2023 school year, our WADA is 9,075. So I think part of the decline is probably attributed to attendance taking during COVID, which was a huge challenge with synchronous, asynchronous, hybrid schedules. Like, let's face it, it was a difficult time for all of us. So hopefully this might level out, but we don't know that. But the most important thing I think that we need to take into consideration, and this is just a sample on the right-hand side. So in the current school year, 21-22, we are charging $308.53 per our WADA to our districts as their assessment for the administrative budget. That's our revenue to support the administrative budget. If we made absolutely no changes to that budget and went out with the same exact dollar figure, our districts would be paying $322.06, which is a 4.39%, increase, which is generated only by the decrease in the RWADA going down to 9,075. And there's a lot of other grants and aid, et cetera, that's connected to RWADA, not just the BOCES admin budget, and then some of our programs like school improvement, ISS is on a base plus RWADA, so there are some other areas where they will be seeing a larger increase because, let's face it, it's really simple math. When the divisor goes down, the rate per RWADA goes up. There's really not a lot we can do about it except make sure that we educate our component districts and bring this to their attention, which I'm sure they're well aware of. But even if we had a zero increase in our expenses, we're going to have over a 4% in their RWADA rate because of the divisor going down. Does that make sense?
Sort of the economy of scale in reverse.
Yeah. And so when we see and when we start working on our rate projections, I think we're going to see some high numbers because this is going to be factored into the equation for any service that is charged out on an RWADA basis. So,
Susan, could you just go over why the Arwadas are different for the different districts?
So it's resident weighted average daily attendance. So it basically is in line with their student enrollment. But if you have a larger population of your district, so like, let's look at Monticello, the 2952 and the 2825. So I think that their enrollment, Bob, is probably a little over 3,000. So when I showed you that other slide before, the elementary students are rated as a 1.0 and the secondary students are rated as a 1.25. So if you have more secondary students, your Arwada is going to be higher than if you have more elementary students. And attendance is what factors into this. It's resident weighted average daily attendance. So if your attendance is low and you have more elementary students and secondary students, your numbers could be lower compared to your actual enrollment. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So now let's talk about rent. So the green number on the screen is our actual rental expenditure for the current year, along with a list of the current facilities that we lease. I'm not going to read them verbatim, but our total rental is $582,572. We are projecting a decrease in our rent for the 22-23 school year of $446,116. That's primarily related to us not leasing the White Sulphur Springs building from Liberty, because that lease ends on June 30th of this current school year. So those are all of the places that we currently have classrooms. The hospital and the college are CTE classes. Our move to this facility for management services, ISS, and admin obviously is included in this. And then that 8 classroom modular that we put up is where, you know, most of the, between that and the E-wing is where the White Sulphur Spring classes are going. And then I did put the last year, the 20, because we always go out 25, 26, you know, 5 years. So 25, 26 is that, is the year, to just kind of give us a guide of like where we're going based on our spatial needs. And so that number is in gray because if you remember, the modular classroom is actually considered equipment. So it's only a 5-year lease, whereas most of our other buildings, because they're considered real buildings, not that the modular classroom is not a building, but that's just the way it works because it's portable, could only be leased for 5 years. So that'll be something to consider in terms of renewing that lease, because I'm assuming we're still going to need that space, but if something changes, that's just a decision that will have to be made as we get closer. So I expect that in the next school year, or as we're planning for 23-24, we'll be starting to have conversations about that particular lease so that we have time to execute whatever is required based on the decision that the board makes in regards to that. So our 002, which is really rental and capital, that's the budget line that we collect those revenues in. So as the revenue required for rentals went down, we increased the capital allocation because we've been talking about all of the capital projects. We just had the facilities committee meeting, I think 2 weeks ago. So we increased our capital to $875,956. And there's no change, no increase in the overall 002 estimate at this point, unless you tell us to add more money to that line, or you want us to increase that line item. We tried to keep it even, but reallocate the money that we weren't needing for rental with White Sulphur Springs going offline and moving that over into capital, because that is going to be used to support these projects. So the boiler replacement project, you approved the secret resolution and the budget for this last month. Our architect should be submitting this to SED any day now. In addition to the almost $790,000 we need for that, we are well aware that the portions of RPEC, which is the A, B, and C wing of the roof, need to be replaced, and some drainage and site work also need to accompany that. We had some conversation again at facilities about that. and window replacements. And then off to the side, I have additional project work, paving work to be attached because, as you are probably aware, paving and site work cannot be done independently because you don't generate any building aid when you do site work without it being attached to a capital project like a renovation or something. So anytime we are working on putting together, whether it's the roof, whether it's window replacements or any other renovation project where we can add some site work or some paving to it so that we're generating building aid units on that required work, we're going to be doing that. Any questions for us about the rental or the capital budgets? Okay. So that pretty much concludes budget development part 1, unless there are questions, and we'd be happy to answer any of those that you may have. Next meeting, oh, go ahead, I heard somebody. No, okay. At the next meeting, which is our understanding is February 1st, we will re-review the components of the budget. We will get into all the different COSER budgets from, like I said, special ed to CTE, itinerants, instructional services. We'll talk about the transfer charges that are incorporated into the program and services budgets. We'll give you an initial preview of where we are with tuitions and program charges. We'll talk to you about the revenues, which is basically the charges to districts and very few grants, but we do have a couple, and we'll give you some more detailed information about those as well, because we will also be starting to prepare our budget booklet for our annual meeting, which is just around the corner, which also means spring is just around the corner. And after the snowstorm we just had, I think that's good news for all. Any questions for us?
Can you unshare your screen, Susan?
I sure can.
Thank you, Susan, very much. No one has any questions. If you think of any, you can probably email them to Susan at this point, unless they can wait till February 1st. Okay, so where am I? Public comment, development budget. Okay, adoption of the consent agenda. There are only 3 parts to it this time. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The first one is an action, which is adoption of the consent agenda. So I need a motion, please. Thank you, Ken. Second, Carol Bliefernick.
Yep.
Thank you both. Any questions? I hope not, because we should have answered them. Terrific. By show of hands, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. Again, Jean, unanimous here. Approval of previous minutes and approval of the donation all were part of the consent agenda. Moving on to financial matters. Claims audit report. Okay.
Pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
It's informational. Does anyone have any comments or questions on it? Moving right along. Yes.
On the payroll in the claims audit down at the bottom, the school counselor WinCap job, is that really the payroll amount?
That's the amount of the full payroll warrant.
Yeah, full payroll, not of that individual.
That's what I was hoping for.
Yes. No,
because I wanted that job.
You mean you'd quit the board for that job?
Yes. Yes, I would. In a second.
All right. That's fair, Carol. That's fair. All right.
Yeah, the claims on it was just, yep, in reference to the different titles of school counselor versus behavioral specialist.
Could you say that again? I did not hear you.
The claims audit finding was just the difference of the school counselor versus behavioral specialist. So I think it was school counselor that went to the board and behavior.
It was to a behavior specialist, but that's actually an assignment, and we want to keep the title standard to their certification as teacher, counselor, or social worker. So that we need to change the title to align with the rest of the staff.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we need to vote on all that once you do it, or just we only had to vote on the things you were going to do for this Frank and Company, that we were changing the things we were changing for our audit?
The plan that we talked about?
Yeah.
No, that's going to be February.
Oh.
The corrective action plan will be an agenda item for February.
Thank you very much. Treasurer's report. This is an action report, an action item, I'm sorry. I need a motion, please. Thank you, Sue, and thank you, Anthony. Trying to get around the board here. Okay. Any questions?
Well, I had earlier raised the question of why our different reserve funds seem to be receiving different interest rates. Now, this is a silly question. It's a nitpicker. As you know, the interest rates are almost nothing. But you look at them, if you look at the TRS retirement fund, if you look at the CTE equipment fund, they're almost the same amount. And yet the interest rates are significantly different. And I just wondered why.
I think that the answer to that question is we're going to need to look into that, Dr. Hilton. So typically the rates do vary by the balances that the accounts hold, as well as like different investment opportunities. If we use like NILAP and MBIA class and some other things that we had used in the past, but we stopped using because the rates were so low.
Well, the reason Susan, I'm sorry to interrupt. The reason I chose those two is that their balances were very similar.
Right. And I was just going to say that Vicki and I were talking about it, and we did have an error with the bank a while ago that Vicki had found, and it took a long time for our former treasurer to get it resolved. So we're going to have to go back and take a look and make sure that there's not a bank error there with those two accounts. So we'll take another look at it.
Maybe I saved BOCES $20 or $30.
You may have.
Man, oh man, it was worthwhile.
Good job, Ken.
Yeah. We have some follow-up to do. Actually, we're going to schedule a meeting with our bank about some customer service issues because we have an administrator who doesn't have something that they need to. So we're working on this.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor, this was an action item, the treasurer's report. A show of hands, please. And again, it is unanimous with Carol Bliefernick here.
I just took off my video. I've been here the whole time. I'm sorry.
I was looking for your face.
I took off the mute.
Okay, we're moving on now to personnel matters. This is an action item. So once again, I need a motion. Ken, Linda, thank you. Questions?
I have a question.
Carol.
What does $70 a day above daily rate mean? Is that above a rate?
So Megan Becker is out as of today on maternity. We approved Patty Sonnenschein before the holidays to serve as the acting principal during Megan's maternity leave. Patty is not able to work more than 4 days a week. So one of our assistant principals is being appointed as an acting principal, since she will now have a regular duty assignment to cover White Sulphur Springs and GMOD as the acting principals on the day Patty's not there. And the $70 a day is the difference between her current rate of pay and the rate that the principal makes.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments? Great. Then all those in favor, please show of hands. Unanimous. Thank you very much. Action discussion items. Okay, now this is going to be the test to stay. That does say stay, right? Test to stay. We're talking about it now and voting it now. Am I correct? Bob? Bob, you're muted.
No, nothing. I'm sorry.
Susan, does somebody want to answer my question?
Yes,
We're presenting it and voting on it today?
correct.
Thank you, Vicki. Vicki's shaking her hands to me. Just want to make sure everybody understood that. So
are we discussing now or not?
yes, this is it. This is our one and only time.
I just have a question. What kind of a
motion first?
We got a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. I need a motion first. Yeah. Carol, make the motion. Thank you, Carol. Second by Ken. Thank you all. Okay.
What is the
Carol,
motion, please? What is the motion?
The motion
I have not heard the motion.
The motion is for the 3 items, not the, or do you want to do them one at a time?
test
Do you want them one at a
I just
time?
would like to hear them. That's all.
Jean, would you like them one at a time?
They need to be done one at a time.
Okay, they're on the agenda. The first one is new policy number 5693, test to stay, first reading and adoption. That's on your agenda, by the way.
Right.
Okay, we have a motion. Carol, you had a question. Did you get an answer yet?
No, I do have a question. And the question is the burden that this places on the tester. I mean, do we have all those places, all those positions in place?
No.
No?
No,
Do we have,
I can't do anything till I have a policy.
okay.
So the procedure, according to our attorney, is I need a policy, and then I need consent, and then I need to implement. We have an individual on staff who has been handling our staff testing, took it over from Jean, and she is a clerical sub that we're keeping on at the moment full-time. She's doing very well with this staff testing. We do not anticipate, because of the nature of BOCES, that we're going to have too many students participate in test to stay. Test to stay requires the parents to fully understand what it is and submit a signed consent form back to us in order to do it. Where districts can do test to stay and somebody can walk in the door and bring their kid with them and sign the form right there, we don't have that because many of our parents don't have transportation. They rely on buses to get into school. So we need to send the consent forms home and have them returned. And our return rate for anything we send home is miserable. So we do not anticipate a large volume of students participating in test to stay. So we have one individual, Carol, on staff that we're going to train to do this. We believe she can adequately meet this need at this time. But if the level of interest exceeds our preliminary expectations, we're going to have to either identify other existing staff to be trained to do it, or bring on other per diem staff to assist with the process. Does that help?
Yes. I was concerned because I knew in the beginning when we were testing staff that Jean had the burden of doing that. And I couldn't imagine, you know,
we were able to just before the holidays, Jean started training Julie Adams. And while Jean has been out for the past 2 weeks, Julie really soloed for the first time and did very well with it. So she is our initial plan to get this off the ground. And we're currently trying to identify other people that can be trained, because this is not, the quirk to this whole test to stay is this is using a home test kit to test the student. So it's not the same as what we're doing now with the professional lab testing the employees, where we take the sample, we ship the sample out, we get results within 24 to 48 hours. This is taking that home test kit that you can buy in the supermarket and having an adult administer it to a child, and an adult do the dropping of the liquid and analyzing the test results and making a determination.
In front of anybody else? Or
no, the adult is the one who's the supervisor.
Well, the policy says trained individual.
Right, trained individual. I'm going to be blunt. It's going to be someone who's read the directions,
it's all
and who's tested on it and has learned how to use it And we can consult with public health, but they're not really going to provide much more support than the directions in the package.
And this is a child who has been exposed to COVID or who has had COVID?
Who has been exposed to COVID. It is an option for them to remain in school as long as they're asymptomatic.
And the mother or the father, whoever brings them to school, is going to...
No, the mother or father has to provide written consent. Our parents don't come to the school, Carol.
So who's bringing the child to the school for the...
School bus.
And who's providing the test?
We are.
We are.
The state has provided us with thousands of tests kits to use for this purpose.
It's all in the policy.
So one of our employees is going to do this?
Carol Bliefernick, I'm going to interrupt you and tell you that if you look at the agenda and if you look at 9.01, it says new policy. It has the number test to stay. You can read the whole policy. If you still have questions after you've read it and you want to call someone, who would be the best person for her to call? Bob. Okay. So give Bob a call, but read through it first. It's just 2 pages and it might answer some of your question.
What are we voting on tonight?
This policy. You can abstain.
And folks, this is a 1-read policy because in order for me to do it, I can't wait until February to do a second. So it's a 1-read.
Yes. If you look at the agenda, it says new policy 5693, test to stay, TTS, first reading and adoption. That's why it's a separate action item. Do you have a copy of the agenda?
So excuse me, I just have one more question.
Go ahead.
Bob, may I ask you?
Yeah.
Are you in favor of this? Is this fine policy for you and your school?
We have no choice.
Yeah. It is what it is.
Because this is what the governor, and this goes to the report that I'm going to give after, so it'll cut down on what I have to say. The governor has basically put test to stay forward as the solution to keep kids in schools. The local public health department has adopted test to stay, which was the first hurdle we needed to go over. All of the districts in the county have indicated they're going to do it, so we also need to do it. I do want to put a caveat on this. It is going to be resource intensive. It's going to be time intensive. And because of certain legal issues that have yet to be clarified by our attorneys, the fact that the state and the county have stopped doing contact tracing and have recommended but not required schools to do it, there is no longer an onus on schools to do contact tracing, and test to stay is only valid if there's contact tracing. And right now, all of the schools have said they will follow the public health department's recommendation and do the contact tracing. So there are a lot of variables in this. So the immediate answer is yes, we need to do this. Yes, I need this policy adopted so I can go on to the next steps. Do I think it's going to solve our problem? No.
No. Thank you.
When you read the policy, it appears to me that it's really kind of silly, except that I think it's the only thing you can do. I mean, when you have a kid driving to school on the bus with symptoms, now you tell after school, he can't do anything. He can't go to after school activities. He's got
Carol, it's without symptoms.
Without symptoms, at least.
But even so, Tony, if they still can't participate in extracurricular activities, which doesn't affect us. But the other thing also, if you look at the policy, it says 3 times over 7 days.
Yeah.
That's based on a December 23rd, 2021 guidance department from the New York State Department of Health when the quarantine and isolation period was 10 days. 5 days later, DOH changed the quarantine and isolation period to 5 days.
Yeah.
But they have yet to issue updated test to stay guidance. So the policy is actually based on a document that is no longer valid.
On the 10 days, the 7 days, right? 3 times in 7 days, correct?
That's what the current policy says, yes.
Right. Does that include weekends?
It carries over the next.
Or is
If
it
you really want to be
school
bored,
days?
I'll send you the guidance. There's actually a chart that we were discussing at senior management today that
God
is
bless
very
you.
involved and very convoluted. And
It's fine. I understand now.
it's so weekends, they factor in, they don't factor in, but that's if it's 7 days based on 10, or what is it based on 5? And so there's this big question mark in there that we hope gets resolved between now and the time we first start trying to do this. But the next step after this is, if you adopt the policy, we have to send out the permission slips, and we will have to mail them home to our parents and also stuff them in their backpacks to take home. And this is only for the 200 plus full day students. This has nothing to do with our CTE students, because our CTE students are the responsibility of the home district. So if they're doing tests to stay, they have to do that. We also are going to have to send a separate letter with a release form to our staff, because the 50 odd staff members that are not quarantined and who are still getting tested weekly, if they're exposed, now we have to put them out for 5 days. If they sign the release, they can continue coming to work as long as they're asymptomatic and they're tested on the cycle stipulated in the guidance. And you think our life is fun?
No.
Every time I get a text from you asking me to call you, I dread what's going to be said.
Well, one of these days that text will be telling you I'm retiring.
That's why she's dreading.
You're right. All right. So we need a vote on this.
Oh, see, Carol, see?
So are you done? Carol, did you have a question again?
No.
No, I'm voting.
Oh,
Okay.
all those in
We're all
favor,
voting.
please raise your hand.
We're all voting.
Anyone against? Yes, one against. And the rest in
Who
favor.
voted against?
Sue.
Sue Sohern, okay.
No, she didn't.
She's for.
Sue,
You did.
Sue, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Did you vote for it with us?
So you're muted.
Sue,
Wait.
you're muted.
Sue, you need to unmute.
I voted with you.
Thank
I
you.
just didn't
Sorry,
take my
your
hand
hand
up.
came up later. I thought it was not.
Not everybody.
Okay, so it's unanimous. My mistake. Please forgive me. Moving to resolution adoption, OCS audit correction action. We have been speaking of that. This is an action item. I need a motion. Ken, thank you. Tony, thank you. Okay, so I think Susan and Vicky and Jen have been very good at explaining all of this to us. Could we just, are there any more questions, or can we vote on it? Good. All those in favor, please show your hands. Show of hands if you're in favor of it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Unanimous. And last but certainly not least, ta-dam, is Memorandum of Agreement, Sullivan County BOCES Teachers Association, Memorandum of Agreement ratification. The teachers have voted, and may I have a motion to accept this? All right, Carol and Carol. There you go, 1 and 1. May I see it by a show of hands, all those in favor of accepting the agreement as it is? Okay, totally unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Sorry for the confusions in there. And Sue, certainly sorry, I didn't realize that. Okay, Dr. DeFore, you are on. Do you have anything you want to say?
I already touched on a lot of this stuff. I spoke to you a little bit about guidance changing daily, and that contact tracing is being discontinued by both the Department of Health and the local public health department. They're recommending schools continue to do contact tracing, but they're not requiring it. They're issuing new guidance almost every other day. In the past 20 days, the guidance has changed from isolation and quarantine being 10 days to now isolation and quarantine being 5 days. Jen and I, who have followed this very closely over the past 24 months, have noted that they're now very carefully using the terms isolation and quarantine. Isolation is when you have COVID. Quarantine is when you've been exposed to COVID. Prior to this, they were using the word quarantine, and Jen, if I'm saying anything wrong, correct me, interchangeably for whether you had it or exposed to it. Now they're differentiating clearly between the two. Not sure why, but they have this issue with the verbiage now. I talked about test to stay. I want to just clarify that is for in-school exposures only. If somebody is exposed outside of school, they cannot use test to stay to come to school. It's only for in school, because we have no idea where somebody outside of school got COVID, where somebody outside of school was exposed to COVID. We only know what happens in the schoolhouse door.
So Bob, can I just ask you something? If I have a classroom of 10 students and one of them comes down with COVID, the rest of them have the option of either staying out of school or doing tests to stay?
If they're quarantined, they stay in school. If they're vaccinated, they stay in school. If they're not vaccinated, they would be put in quarantine for 5 days, unless the parents elect to use tests to stay.
Okay.
Where as long as they're asymptomatic, they can continue to come to school as long as they test along the table that we're using at the current time. The other thing I meant to mention is the State Department of Health and the local Department of Health are no longer issuing isolation or quarantine orders. They now have something called self-attestation, where if you use a home test kit and you are positive, you go to the county website, you fill in a form, and they email you a blank form with the public health director's signature at the bottom, where you print your name and sign it, attesting that all of the information you provided is true and accurate, and you are now isolated or quarantined, depending on what you reported. The state website is even simpler. You simply print out a PDF form, fill in the blanks, and sign it. There's no way to verify it. We've already had one instance of fraud on the very first day the system went active. A teacher in Livingston Manor came in the morning after the portal went up, and saw an email from public health, opened it up, and there was a quarantine order in their email. But their name was right, their email address was right, but their date of birth was wrong. Somebody filled out the form for them, and the form to be signed was emailed to the teacher.
For who? Who? For a student?
For the teacher. Somebody filled it out to quarantine the teacher.
Geez.
Now, of course, it was invalid, and I called it to the attention of the Commissioner of Family Services, who oversees our public health department, and they're like, I'm sure there will be other issues, but there's nothing we can do about it.
What a monster.
So that's test to stay and the COVID update. The only other thing I have is a reminder that we will be using the February 1st meeting that was tentatively scheduled. It will be a workshop for our strategic planning. It will be a meeting that will go into executive session to discuss certain specific budgetary informations, and then the final budget presentation will be made in a public session afterwards. There will be no other business on that agenda, but as usual, since we have the meeting scheduled and it's going to be a meeting, I'll reserve the right, if we have any immediate actionable items, I'll consult with Linda and put those on the agenda if need be.
So, Bob, I will be in the car on my way to Williamsburg, Virginia, or I might be in Williamsburg, depending on the time of day. So is it still going to be okay to be virtual?
Yeah. So right now, our understanding is that the Assembly and the legislature have passed a law allowing virtual meetings as long as the governor's declaration of emergency is still in effect. That law was passed last week. The governor has yet to sign that law. The governor has yet to extend virtual meetings. Out of an abundance of caution, Mrs. Berkowitz and I decided it would be safest to have this meeting virtually. We thought it would be better to be slapped in the wrist than to expose everyone needlessly. So, Carol, I can't answer your question because I don't know what will be going on at that moment.
Yeah.
I believe, based on everything I've seen, that they're not expecting this surge to break for another 4 to 6 weeks, that yes, it will still be virtual, but I can't definitively say that. However, you can still participate in the meeting by Zoom. You just can't vote.
All right. So I'll be in touch with Jean because I'm going to be gone all of February and all of March, and I won't be back until 8.
Okay. So you set that up with Jean then.
Good. Okay. Anything else that we didn't touch, administrators, or that you 4 people that are here besides Bob and Jean and us? Anybody have anything that they missed or we cut you off or you want to add? Nope. Okay. Board member comments. Ken, I'm starting with you. Okay. Linda.
I'm good. Thank you.
Good. Sue.
Good.
Anthony.
I'm good also. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol?
Good.
Just the greatest thanks and gratitude to the board, to the teachers union for this contract and our condolences for Teresa Penny. Really, I know, very hard time of year for them, and God bless. We care for them all.
And Carol Park.
I'm good.
Good. I went to the funeral, as did Bob. I don't know if anybody else did. We went down there, I'm not sure. And it was, you know, I represented the board.
Thank you.
I didn't know if anyone else was going. Oh my, again, my pleasure. And
I didn't know where it was. Did you put it up for us? Because I did not know anything about it.
Who's speaking? Sue is speaking.
Sue.
I'm sorry.
I didn't see it.
I think there was an obituary. Maybe I read it in the paper.
I didn't see it.
I'm not sure, Sue, to be honest with you.
Thank you. I hadn't seen anything.
Well, you represented us, and thank
Sue,
you for that.
What are you speaking on? Are you on a phone?
I'm on my laptop and it's not good.
Oh, because that's how I missed you, because when you're speaking, your body is not moving with your words. So there you are. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Please remember that we are going to meet on February 1st.
Yes.
At 4:30, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. 4:30.
Is it a workshop too?
Yeah. We're starting with the workshop and then the meeting. We're doing that for a while for now. Thank you all for coming. Do I have a motion since Kathy's not here? Thanks, Linda. And thanks, Tony. And all those in favor of ending the meeting, raise one of your hands at least. Yep. Excellent. Jean, thank you very much. Bob, Susan, Jen, and Vicky.
Happy trails.
And Maria.
How could I forget Maria?
Thank you, Maria, for our workshop.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Linda, are you still there, Linda?
Yes, I am.
Hi. I just want